Hey friends, in today's video we're going to be focusing on how to do a recovery, how to pull a vacuum, and there's going to be two different ways I'm going to show you, and how to charge a system when the system is off and when it's on. Let's get started. Alright, so first things first, we need our gauges to connect to the system and access the refrigerant. Second, we need a recovery machine. And third, we need a recovery tank. And sure, you also need a weight scale. And I'm briefly gonna go over how much a 30-pound and a 50-pounder can take briefly, but I just want to show you the steps, okay? So you do need these three things. And the idea is that you want refrigerant when you recover going from the system to the tank, because let's say you need to swap out the compressor, let's say there's a leak somewhere, you need to swap out a filter dryer, you do not want to brace with refrigerant in the system, so you must take out the refrigerant using a recovery machine, and this recovery machine is going to then push the refrigerant into the recovery tank. So this is the steps. So first things first, we got to connect our gauges. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit closer here so you guys can see these are my gauges right there. And so the high side right there, I connected it to my liquid line. As you can see, got my liquid line and then my low side. And do we have pressure in the system? Yep, we're at 212 psi. So this system has refrigerant. Now the service hose, this one here, must go into the recovery machine. So down here, you have what is the in. You see right there, it says in on your left. If you're looking to the left, so that service hose is gonna go to the in, and then I need another hose, and then that's gonna go to from here to the tank, right? So you see the process here. It's coming this way to the in, and then this one's gonna go to the out to the tank, and of course we're gonna turn on the recovery machine to help us to do that. So what I like to do with my service hose, you see this one here has a little cord depressor in here. I like to actually remove it. Now, if you already have a service hose that doesn't have this, you don't have to worry about it. But you want to prevent any restrictions inside. So what I'm doing right here, I'm going to go ahead and go lefty-loosey, right, and remove that cord depressor. And that cord depressor, you need it. Like, for example, the blue and the red one, right now they have that cord depressor because on those ports, you got a little valve core, a little schrader. You need that cord depressor to push into the system so you can access the refrigerant. But in this case, I'm going to take it out from here because it's going to make it easier when pulling a recovery or when doing the recovery. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off right here. So you see right here, the little cord depressor, and actually screws in right there. It just screws in. But I am gonna take this one out. I am gonna put this away, the cord depressor, in a way where it doesn't get lost. I am gonna put that little O-ring here, right? There's a rubber part here back, and you see now I have a way for that refrigerant just to come out completely without any restriction. So this one's gonna go to the in. So let's go back here. And if you recall, the in was on the left, right? So I'm going to just go ahead and simply put it here. Some techs will put a little filter dryer right here. So you can have clean refrigerant going out. Sure, you can do that. And in this case, I'm just showing you the steps, how to do it. But yeah, you can put a filter dryer so you can have, cleaner refrigerant going in there. I know this system has clean refrigerant, so I'm not going to be worried about putting a filter dryer. But I just want to show you the steps, right? Access the system. It goes on my service hose. It goes to the in. And guess where this one goes to now? Where it says out, that's going to go to my tank because it's going in, out to the tank. So this other service, you need another hose too. You see, this one does not have any cord depressors. They do have the little black grommets or black rings. That's important you have it. It must be in good condition. If not, it can leak out. So I'm going to go ahead and put it right here on the out. And then you have a lot of techs they'll say, well, I like to put it on the red one. I like to put it on the blue one. It's up to you. I've seen both work in my case, but I usually put on the blue one. This red one has a dip tube that comes all the way here to the bottom. But right now, well, there's no there's no compressor in there, right? Doing this, right? Pumping. It's just all there. But you know, just for this example, I'll go ahead and put it on the blue one. But we've done it on the red one, and we've had no issues. So this is important though. You must purge the lines. There's air in the system. So I'm gonna go ahead and come out with this so you can see it. So look at this right here. If I open those valves right there, then refrigerant's gonna come through the blue and the red, and it's gonna come down to through the yellow hose, right? That's the whole goal of that. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's see what happens, right? I'm gonna go ahead and open these all the way. All right, all the way. So now I have refrigerant coming from the blue and red to my yellow hose all the way here to this hose right here. So how do we know? Well, I'm just gonna, open it a bit. You can hear that noise coming out, right? But what I like to do, I don't like to purge it there. I actually like to purge it right here. So what I do, you see right there on the recovery machine, you have what is called, let me see if I can get closer. You have what is recover, close, and self-purge. So you want to recover. So I'm going to go ahead and open that, and let's see if you can hear the noise. You might not be able to hear the noise, but let's see if you can. And you probably see this hose right here kind of move a bit. So here we go, recover. You see, you probably saw that move a bit. That means refrigerant, because I put it on recover. Now it's going from in, out, right there. So what I like to do personally, once I've had all the refrigerant come through from the hoses, my low and the high side, I open the valves on the gauges, goes in, and then put it on recover. So then it allows the refrigerant to go from in to out. I go ahead and purge at the end. I go from system, recovery machine, recovery tank. That's kind of the principle here. Boom, boom, boom. Higher pressure goes to lower pressure. So then I go ahead and just purge it right here. You'll be able to, you can hear that noise just for a bit because you have a lot of air. Okay. And then in this case, I'll go ahead and zero it out, right? So right now, and I'll go over the numbers with you guys. So right now, let's see. Right now, we have, and these, you have to be a little patient, 18 pounds. So I'll go over the numbers right now. But because I already recovered, right? I can go ahead now and open it, right? Because I already purged, rather. I can go ahead and open it. Okay. And I can hear some refrigerant going into the tank right now. Okay, so that's open. I heard a little bit, but you're not gonna be able to just get all the refrigerant in from there to the tank. You can't. You need the recovery machine. So in this case, we're gonna go ahead and turn it on. And let's see if I'm able to show you guys the numbers right here. You got 207, 184. Let's go ahead and turn it on. Okay. So inside the recovery machine, you have an oilless compressor. It's basically the suction and the high side, the discharge. It's sucking refrigerant. This 124, it's coming from the system. The compressor is sucking refrigerant this way, and then this one here is going out that way to my recovery tank. And you want to be careful with that number, because this number, if it reaches, I believe, 650 psi, it will shut off the recovery machine because it's too high. And how can it reach 650 psi? Well, if in your hoses you have restrictions, if that's already somewhat full of refrigerant, if you're in a hot day and you already have and let's say it's too hot, that heat reacts with the refrigerant and you have too much pressure in there, higher pressure. So just be mindful of that. You might need to have a bucket, one of these right here. You might need to put it, get some cold water and put it in a bucket right here to cool it down. Or you can get a molecular transformator, and this basically converts the high pressure, high temperature vapor to liquid. It brings down the heat. And it's the same concept. You have something called the in, right here, in. And then, so that hose that goes to the recovery cylinder, instead of it going there, it goes to in. And then you get another hose that goes from the out to my recovery tank. And this is much easier because all you have to do is fill it up with water and put it in here. Not all the way, but maybe up to here. Put it inside. And that water is going to get warm because all that heat is being trapped in the water, and it's going to help you with the recovery. So we'll let it do its recovery right now. But once again, I want to show you the steps right here, right? Just the principle here. We were trying to go from the system to the recovery tank. We need a recovery machine to pour that refrigerant from here to the in, and then it comes out to the tank. And we always want to be careful of that number. We don't want to exceed the high pressure cutout, so we got to be able to cool down this tank. So right now, it is getting a little bit hot, and this is a good example. It shut off. And look what it says right here. It says, let's see, you see, pressure cutout. So let me go ahead and get it ready with the molecular transformator so that you can see that it's not going to cut out when using that tool there. So let me go ahead and get that ready, and I'll come back right now. Okay, so just like you saw in the earlier clip, the tank got too hot, higher heat, more heat, more pressure, and it turned off. So now I'm introducing the molecular transformator here. So it's very simple. Instead of the hose, remember if you, in the earlier clip, this hose went to the tank and to the recovery cylinder. Instead of it going right here to the tank, it goes to the in of the molecular transformator, and it actually says in right there. And then this other hose, I have to get another hose. This one goes to the out, on the out, and it goes to the recovery tank. So it's still the same principle, right? It's going from the gauges, low and high side connected, open the valves through the service hose to the in of the recovery machine, and then the out goes to the in of the molecular transformator, and then it goes to the then it goes, another hose goes on the out to the recovery tank. Boom, 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 right? So, and think of the molecular transformator as like a condenser. You're taking that high pressure, high temperature refrigerant, and you're removing a lot of heat, right? And that's why it comes out as liquid. So instead of air, you have to fill it up with water. And you have to fill it up with water enough for it to kind of go, cover all these coils that you see right here. And so now all that heat is going to get trapped in the water. So once we're done, that water is going to be a lot warmer than what it is now. Now, because I did connect hoses now on the molecular transformator, I do have to purge again. So everything's closed, right? Everything's closed. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this ball valve coming from the system. Open it. Okay, and I just heard the refrigerant going through. I'm going to go ahead and purge here. Okay, I like to purge for a couple seconds just because you have a lot of hoses. So I want to make sure I get all the air out. So now that I've purged, now I can open it all the way, lefty-loosey, and now I can turn it on. So now we don't anticipate it turning off. So look at that number there. That's the number we want to be careful with. We don't want that number shooting up too high. If not, we will not be able to finish our job. And so far, so good. It hasn't turned off. And although it'll take a little while, but in here, in time, it'll start to get a little warm. Right? It'll start to get a little warm. So that's good because it'll help us finish the job. So once again, the principle here is going from the machine, the system, and then you have the recovery machine in between the system and the recovery tank. So this can help you pull refrigerant out going there. And then of course, I always like to purge all the way at the end before I open that valve. And I could have, instead of using the molecular transformator, I could have just gotten that recovery tank and dipped it on the bucket here with semi-cold water, and that would have kept the recovery machine from turning off. But you need to make sure you cover it enough, and you'll see that water heat up. if you dump that recovery tank into the bucket, because you're trying to kind of remove as much heat as you can. So right now, I could actually feel the water getting warm in there. So we're gonna let it do its job. In the meantime, I'll tell you how to calculate how much refrigerant you can still add and put on a 30-pound and on a 50-pound recovery tank. And one thing I forgot to mention, I'm waiting for these numbers. Let's see, that light might be, okay, not too bad for you guys. You see my pressures, my high side and my low side, they're dropping. So how do I know when I'm done? Well, at least with this specific recovery machine, this one's nice enough where it will actually shut off. And it actually will pull a little vacuum. But a lot of the times we don't start off with the recovery machines like these. So what I like to do, I will wait for that recovery machine to continue working. And I will wait for those numbers to go to 0. And I'll still wait 5-10 minutes, even more, to get all that vapor pressure out of the system. And I'll show you why that's important when we use the recoil removal tool. But yes, right now I am waiting for these numbers to drop to 0, and I'm still gonna let it run maybe 5 more minutes to make sure I get all the refrigerant out. So in residential and light commercial, you're gonna most likely be dealing with a 50-pound, and you see how bigger it is. This is a 50-pounder, or the 30-pounder, which is the one that we're working with right now. Now, there's certain calculations, certain things that a little bit of math that must be involved to see how much refrigerant you want going into these tanks. Because let's say you need to recover 2 units. Well, are you okay in recovering the refrigerants from 2 units into a tank? There's a certain percentage you don't want to exceed that the manufacturers are asking us, do not exceed this. So typically 30 and 50-pounder, it's 80%. But to understand this, let's go out here. Let's go to the whiteboard here. So, of course, to know how much you have in a tank, you do need a weight scale. Absolutely, you need one of these. You can't really eyeball it. But you got the 30-pound and the 50-pound. The tare weight, all that means is the weight of the metal, not counting the refrigerant. So we can agree that this 50-pound here, it has refrigerant inside, but let's say when you first buy it, it doesn't have any refrigerant, but it still weighs something because the metal of it, it's pretty heavy. So the tare weight is just the metal of the recovery cylinder. So for example, tare weight, and these numbers, guys, are just rule of thumbs. The tare weight for that 50-pounder that I just picked up, it's at about 29.2. The 30-pound is at about 17.4. So you see, it's just the tare weight on the 50-pounder is a bit different than 28. But this is just rule of thumb. Most tanks do fall under these numbers. So the tare weight of a 50-pounder, that means 28 pounds. That means that even if it has refrigerant or it doesn't have refrigerant, that tank itself weighs 28 pounds. And so 50-pound, that means, wait, I can put 50 pounds of refrigerant in there. But there's a thing that you must be aware of, the 80% rule. They want us to only recover or put in 80% of 50 because refrigerant expands when it's hot. So if you put in 50 pounds of refrigerant, well, I'm not gonna say it's gonna blow up unless it's in the worst conditions. We have it on a van that's really hot, but sometimes you have like a little relief valve in the back here, and then it'll start to kind of leak, kind of purge itself out because it's got too much. But just to keep it simple though, right? You just do 80%. So what's 80%, right? 50 times 80%, that's 40. So we can only charge or only recover 40 pounds of refrigerant in the tank. That doesn't take into account the tare weight. The tare weight is 28. So that 50-pound, when you put that 50-pound on a weight scale, which we'll see right now, when you put it on a weight scale, it should never exceed 40 plus 28 is 68. Because that 68 is taking into account the tare weight and the maximum amount of refrigerant, which is 40. It should never exceed 68 when you put it on the actual weight scale. A 30-pound is also pretty simple. 17 pounds, that's how much the 30-pound recovery tank weighs, 17 pounds. 80% of 30 is 24. When you add both of these, 41. It should never exceed 41. So if you get that 30-pound recovery tank and you put it here and it says 50, then there's something wrong. It's got too much refrigerant. It should not exceed 41. So now let's go ahead and see how much refrigerant we have on that 50-pounder and then do the math. All right, so I put the 50-pounder here on the weight scale and we are reading, let me see if I can zoom in so you can see it, 30 pounds and 12.5 ounces. So have in mind there's 16 ounces and 1 pound. So it's almost 31 pounds, okay? It's almost 31. So just for this example, let's just say it's 31. We're not gonna get into all the ounces and all that. I mean, we're pretty close, right? HVAC, there's not so much black and white when it comes to these numbers. It's not the end of the world. But let's just say for simplicity, let's say it's 31, okay? So 31, that's how much it weighs right now, the whole tank and whatever refrigerant it has in there. But we don't know how much more we can still add, because let's say we're dealing with the system and this is an R22 recovery tank and we want to recover, let's say 10 pounds of R22 into this. Can we safely do it? As long as, can we safely do it and stay behind, under the 68 pounds? We got to do the math. So that one, it says it's 31 pounds. Total weight is 31 pounds. Okay? What is the tare weight of a 50-pound tank? Tare weight, 28. Okay, so let's subtract the metal of this, just the metal, the tank itself, not the refrigerant. The total weight is 31, but how much refrigerant does it have in there? Well, you got to subtract the tare weight. 31 minus 28, that leaves us with 3. That means that after we subtract the tare weight, we're left with 3 pounds. That's how much 3 pounds, that's how much it has of refrigerant. It has. So we found out how much it has, but how much can we still put into the recovery tank? Well, remember the rule here, right? 80% of 40, right? 80% of 50 rather, it's 40. So 40 is the most we can put a refrigerant. It has 3. We can still put 37 pounds of refrigerant. So yes, if we have a package in there that takes 10 pounds of R22, we can safely put 10 pounds into this tank, because after doing the math, we can still put 37 pounds of refrigerant. Now, some guys like to do it the other way. I personally like this way better, but some techs like to do it this way. This number here, it's one of these numbers you have to memorize for this, but like I said, you only get it from adding 28 and 40, 68. But what they do, they'll get 68, right? 68 minus total weight, right? 31. So that is 37. 37. Boom. That's how much we can put in. So both give you the same answers, but it's just different. This one tells you how much it has, and then you still have to get the 40 and subtract it from 3. That's how much you can put in. This one, all you need is that number, that key number, that special number, 28 plus 40, 68. Subtract that from the total weight. You need the weight scale, and boom, you could put 37 inside. So you can do it either way. And the same applies for a 30-pound. You would do the same math, but yes, you need to know the tare weight. And if the tare weight on the tank, it says something else, we'll go off of what it says on the tank. This is just rule of thumb. And you do need a weight scale. There's no way around it. You do need a weight scale. Do the math, and like that, you'll be able to find out how much refrigerant you can still put in to these recovery tanks. So this is what I had mentioned earlier. There's recovery tanks, recovery machines. They're able to pull, even though they got all the refrigerant, it's able to pull into a negative. If you see right there, negative 0.5. So that's inches of mercury. So I like to let it run for a bit so that make sure I get all that vapor pressure in the system. But let's say I finished. This specific recovery machine has something called Self-purge. I'll show you right there. Self-purge. So with that, you're able to actually do this, and it actually it works out great. So let's say it's done right there, right? I can still let it run for a bit, but let's say it's done. What about the refrigerant in the hoses? What about the refrigerant in the recovery machine, in the molecular transformator? I want to get all that into that tank. That could be a couple of ounces. So what you do for that, you go ahead, let me get this closer. You go ahead and close these first, right? See, negative 2.4, that's good. I got everything out. Close it first. All right, it's closed. Put it on, self-purged. And you could even hear the machine sound a little bit different, but it's pushing all the refrigerant from the hoses now, because I already closed those, from the hoses, everything from here, into that tank. Once it shuts off, and it's going to shut off on its own, like right now, then you can go ahead and close this. And like that, you make sure that you got all the refrigerant from the hoses, because in a lot of cases, especially when you're using the this tool right here, the molecular transformator, when you close that and you try to unscrew the hose, remove the hose, you're going to have a lot of refrigerant, a lot of low loss, de minimis coming out. But with that setting, if you have it, great. And if not, it's okay. I would just run the recovery machine a little bit longer to make sure I get all the refrigerant away from the hoses, from the machine into the tank. Okay, so let's say now that you recovered everything, right? You've let the remaining refrigerant, if there was any, by removing the schrader, the core valve out. You removed that out, a little bit maybe came out. You braced, whatever you did, replaced it. And of course, when you are bracing, you got to run nitrogen on one end, about 3 to 5 psi of nitrogen going through one end, and then coming out through the other end as you brace to you don't want to get that soot oxidization in the lines. And let's say you do all that, now you must pull a vacuum. So you have and this is one of the methods I'm going to teach you, right? So you got the gauges, everything's connected, nothing's changed, right? The low side, the blue to the low side, the red to the high side, and the service hose now goes to the vacuum pump, right? And this actually has oil in there. So I got a vacuum pump there, it's connected here, and you got two ports here where you can connect it. If you had a bigger hose, you can connect it right there, which I'm going to show you in the other example how you can do it. But if you're not using it, that one must remain closed. And you're going to see why. Now, if you have the digital gauges, these digital gauges come with a built-in micron gauge. So that means that this is going to go into a vacuum. So let's go ahead and open these right here all the way. Open it all the way. Okay, let's go ahead and turn it on. Okay. So right now, let's see. You see right now, I'm at -6. So you got 0 psi, and then you got, you could say 30 inches of mercury, which is -30. It's just the type of measurement. So it goes from 0, 30 inches of mercury, and then it goes into the micron world. If you continue pulling a vacuum, it's going to go into the micron world, which is what we want. We want to hit 500 microns. So right now, it is getting there. And the idea behind a vacuum is, because it's important to understand, the idea behind a vacuum is that, you know, water boils at sea level at 212 degrees. So let's say before I introduce refrigerant back in the system, there could be moisture, non-condensables, things that I don't want. I only want refrigerant inside the lines. So by me pulling a vacuum, it removes all that moisture. But you might ask, oh, how does it do that? Well, it's true. Going back to moisture, it boils at 212 degrees at sea level. So I can get a torch gun and kind of start heating up all the copper, the copper heated up to boil off that all the moisture. But another way of doing it, which is a lot safer and more simple, is getting a vacuum pump. That vacuum pump is actually inside of the lines. It's creating a negative pressure. a negative pressure. So now, by you creating a negative pressure, in this case 500 microns, instead of water boiling off at 212, now it boils off at 20 something degrees. So you're actually, and that is why they call it dehydration. You're actually bringing the pressure inside so low, any moisture that's inside, it's gonna boil off. It's just gonna boil off, because you're creating a negative pressure inside this. So yeah, you are kind of doing the suction, and people think, well, I'm doing the suction so that moisture can get pushed out and come out through this part here, which is the little part where the oil goes in. Right there you have it coming out, but really it's because it's creating a negative pressure in the lines. And instead of water boiling off now at 212, because I created a negative pressure, it boils off at like 20 something, 30 degrees. And around us here, it's 80 degrees. So absolutely, that water is gonna boil off. So right now, I'm at 22.4. Now, this method is okay if you're gonna do this method, but a lot of people don't like it because, let's say your gaskets are all bad, right? They're all chewed up. There's more points of where it could like not be able to pull a vacuum, because atmospheric pressure is 14.7 right here. So if any of these gaskets right here are not working correctly, or chewed up, they need to be replaced, you're never gonna be able to pull 500 microns. So right now I'm barely a negative 23.3. The fact that it hasn't reached 500 microns, it tells me that one of these hoses maybe are not working correctly. Maybe there's a little, one of the gaskets is not working right. So that's what it tells me. And that's okay, because I'm going to show you the other way. And the other way is a lot better if you don't have these digital gauges that have a built-in micron gauge. And one thing I wanted to show you too, look at the right here. You see, if I open this right here, I'm going to open it. You see, it's sucking air in. It's actually creating a suction. And you see my numbers here? It went back to an actual number. So you want to make sure these are all closed. Sometimes you have vacuum pumps that have like 4 different sizes. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, so I can just pull a vacuum through the service hose, right? So obviously my vacuum is not pulling enough to reach the micron. It could be that one of these hoses are bad. It's okay, because I want to show you the other way. But this is one of the ways. The only downside is that you need gauges that can read, that have a built-in micron gauge. And your hoses, there's more points of where it could, you could be introducing air from the atmosphere into here if these gaskets inside of the O-rings are not in good condition. So let's go ahead now and go to the second option on how to pull a vacuum. So the first method actually was able to pull about 1,870 microns. So obviously I want the number to be at 500, but I was able to pull enough. I want to show you something though too. A lot of technicians, when they're starting off, and I've made this mistake many times, look at what happens when, and this is intended because I need to show you the other method. When I'm gonna go ahead and unscrew this, because I'm gonna pull a vacuum again. Look at that noise it makes. You might have not have heard it, but if you did, you hear a little psh, air, because outside is atmospheric pressure, 15 psi. Inside is negative pressure. It didn't come out. Air actually went inside. So of course I would have to pull another vacuum. But a lot of the times when you're starting off, you unscrew this and you hear a noise, you got to pull another vacuum. So I always want to leave it connected until you reintroduce refrigerant into the system. Okay, so this other method, you need a core removal tool. This tool is very important to have in your toolbox. So you need this tool. And the way this works is that it allows you to access the system by taking out the schrader, so you can pull a faster recovery, faster vacuum, which you'll see right now. So right now we're gonna do the second method of pulling a vacuum. First things first, inside there's a little schrader. I gotta take it out. So a lot of the times you can just actually remove both parts, right? Just like that. But they do come together like that. But I'm gonna go ahead and take it out, and I'm gonna go inside here, lefty loosey. Okay. You see? There was a suction inside. So now air is going inside of there. Air is going inside. So, of course, I'm going to put another vacuum, but you're going to take another body, put it in there here. Okay. That's good. And then you get this other part right here. And this part here, and the thing here, you do need a micron gauge reader. This is going to help us to read how many microns they're the inside of the lines, how much microns were in, what number. And so that one, because this part here has a schrader, rather a valve core, right? A schrader, you need to put, because this has a core depressor, you're going to put it right there. So this one goes right here. Okay. All right. So now we have everything set up. We can now get the vacuum pump. And so in this case, you can do it a couple ways. So the nice thing is, like, for example, this vacuum pump, right? Look at this vacuum pump here. This is the big boy right here. This one, what is it? How much? 60 FM dual stage vacuum pump. And you can get different hoses for this too. Like this one, for example, I want to say it's quarter inch size, but you got to look at this one. You could put a 3/8, which is a thicker hose, a black hose. I want to say it's 3/8 or ½ inch, but I think it's 3/8. You put that one there, and it pulls the vacuum a lot faster. So you do get what you pay for, but you can still do the job with the vacuum pump like that. That's small. It still works. But I'm just saying, if you do have the money, buy the bigger vacuum hose, the black one that typically comes on your 4-port, the 4-port micro digital gauges. The black one, you can just connect it right there, straight to from here to the core removal tool. But yes, you do get what you pay for. But I started off with that. I did not start off with this. And they do suggest you change the vacuum oil every use. But I mean, if it's a new system, if you did the job, I mean, some guys do a vacuum oil change every 3 times, every 5 times. But there's also people out there that don't do any any oil changes. And with that, it's like not changing the oil in your car. So it is important just to be mindful. You do have to change the oil at some point, especially how frequent you've changed you use the vacuum pump in removing non-condensables and moisture from a system. So we're not going to use this one. We're going to use the little one, but I just wanted to show you this one here. All we're doing is connecting the hose from here, right? And look, I don't have any core depressors in there. It's going to be a lot easier, a faster vacuum. I'm going to go and connect here. And look, I'm not using any gauges at all. I'm just using the micron gauge, a hose, and the core removal tool. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. Okay. So we're going to let it run. This is where most guys go and take their lunch break for about an hour or so, so that they could just come back. But yeah, typically we'll probably wait. At least in this case, we might have to wait a couple minutes, but I won't have you guys wait, but I just wanted to show you the process. You see, core removal tool, I removed the schrader, connected to the micron gauge reader here, and then this hose goes all the way straight to the vacuum pump and turned it on. So we're gonna let it do its thing. Right now, there it is. Now we are in the micron world. I know it's backwards, so let's see if I can get a good number there. We're at 9,000, 8,000. That's pretty fast. 7,000. So I might not have to turn off the video here. Let's go ahead and just wait a bit. And 5,000, 4,000. You know what? I'll go ahead and let it do its thing, and then I'll come back when it's a lot lower in the micron world. So although in HVAC there's a lot of gray areas, this is where it's black and white. You do not want to reintroduce atmospheric pressure or air back into the system. So once it reaches 500 microns, it is normal for it to climb up a bit. But really the key is, as long as it stays under 1,000 microns, it's okay. But let's say just hypothetically, and this is very important right here, before I turn the vacuum pump off, I want to close the ball valve. Close it. So now I've isolated the environment, the atmospheric pressure from going into the system. This micron gauge here is still reading what's in the system because it is after the ball valve. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. Okay, it's off. I'm isolated, right? I close this, right? That's closed. And this is reading from the system downward. And this is coming up. So it is normal for it to climb up. Let's say you go to 500, for it to climb up to 6, 7, 8, as long as it's under 1,000. Let's say it goes up to 2 or 3,000. You could still have moisture in the system. You might have to pull a triple evac. And I can do a video on that later. But simply with the triple evac, all you're doing is pulling a vacuum, introducing nitrogen, very slow though, about 3 to 5 psi. Let it go through one end, coming out for a couple minutes. Pull another vacuum, then redo it with the nitrogen coming in through one end, coming out, and then pull a third vacuum. That's just a triple evac. By you introducing nitrogen slowly from one end to the other, it captures all that moisture. It takes it with it. If you do it too fast, like 100 psi, you're not giving a chance to capture all that moisture. So you can do a triple evac, but let's say it reaches 500 microns, 600 microns, like in this case. Look, you see this right here? It doesn't matter if I open this or not, because I am isolated. That is closed. That must remain closed. So that if you open it, you're going to introduce air again, and you're going to have to redo a vacuum. So we're done with the vacuum. So we must charge the system. Now, this system, if I recall, it takes, and it says it right here, 100 ounces. So when you convert 100 ounces, there's 16 ounces in a pound. It's about 6 pounds and 4 ounces. So I can charge the system using a virgin tank. So this is a virgin tank here, right? 410A. Because it's a blend, when I charge, I must charge liquid. So I have to, connect it, turn it upside down, and then purge. So I'm going to show you, though, charging with a recovery tank, right? Because the virgin tank, I'm sure a lot of you guys use that. But just like I said, going back to the virgin tank, all you're doing is just flipping it upside down and then purging it before it goes into the system. So that is the same process as this, as long as you know that you have to turn the tank upside down and purge before you reintroduce refrigerant into the system. But in this case, we're going to use the recovery tank. Okay, so let's go ahead. I have everything set up right there. I'm going to go ahead and get my hose right here. Okay, and because the red one has a dip tube and I must introduce only liquid refrigerant, I'm going to use the red one. Okay, the red one I'm going to use. If I use the vapor, I already kind of messed up because 410A contains R32 and 125. R32 has a little bit more pressure. So I'm going to get more R32 coming out, and I just fractionated the refrigerant. So you must introduce it in the liquid form. So this red one has a dip tube that goes down here. I'm able to get all the liquid and then only have liquid come out. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and connect this hose right there. Okay. And so the way you purge here is not too hard. You're going to connect it here. I'm not going to connect it all the way, screw it in all the way. I'm just going to crack it very little. Okay. Very little. Okay. You see? All right, good. And you can see all that liquid refrigerant coming out. I'm purged. So I cracked it a little bit. Once I see liquid refrigerant, you close it. Good. I'm going to open this all the way. And remember, it takes 6 pounds and 4 ounces. So what I'm going to do here, and this is important here too, right here. This is important. So before I move on, let's go back to the steps, right? This is still isolated. I connected my recovery tank on the liquid straight to the core removal tool right here on the top. Okay. And I must charge 6 pounds and 4 ounces. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. Okay. Let me go ahead and turn this on. I got to turn that on. I got to turn that on. Put it right here. Okay. Make sure nothing's touching it. It's very delicate. And then right now we are at 28. So you can do it a couple of ways. What I like to do, so right now it's 28. So remember the tare weight, 28 minus 17, that is 11. So it's got 11 pounds inside. Good. I only want to put 6 pounds and 4 ounces. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and to make it easy for me, I'm going to go ahead and zero it out. Because I know I just did the math. I have enough to fill this. So let's zero it out. Okay, it's zeroed out. Okay. So this is critical here. Right here, because it's on the liquid, whether it's on the liquid or discharge port, it doesn't matter. Right here is where you want to throw all the refrigerant you can, as much as you can. If you start throttling it, that's going to pick up in pressure, and then it's going to fight it, and you're not going to be able to charge all of it while it's off. Because right now it's off. You want to charge as much as you can while it's off. That's the key. If you can't charge all of it, I'm going to show you guys right now how to charge on the low side. But right now it's off. So higher pressure goes to lower pressure because that's in a vacuum. So right now it's off, right? The system's off, obviously. You do not want to turn it on in a vacuum. And I'm at 0 pounds. So I've already opened that. I already purged. Now I can open the valve right here, right? And you must leave this right here, right? Because if you open it, you're going to allow air to go in. So let's go ahead and open that and look at that climb up. Let's see if I can do it without the light. Not sure. There we go. So I'm going to open the valve right here, right? The valve, right? That's on my liquid line. Look at that. Now it's climbing up. I'm at 1 pound. And of course, that's why I'm doing it on the liquid line, not the suction. You do not want to charge the system while it's off on the suction because you're going to damage the compressor. You want to do it on the liquid line. If it doesn't have a liquid line port, then do it on the discharge port. Package units typically only have a discharge port and suction port. This one we had on the liquid line, just put it there. If it has a discharge port, just charge on the discharge port. You'll be okay. There's like a check valve. It won't allow refrigerant to kind of go back to the compressor. But you see, now I'm getting close to 6 pounds and 4 ounces. I better be ready to close this. So almost there. So for this case though, I think I hit it right on the money. So now that we've charged, I am going to show you still how to charge on the low side while it's on, and how to do a passive recovery while it's on too. And you'll see that right now. Okay, so I closed the recovery tank, and I forgot to show you this one step. This is very important. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the hose. That's some of the de minimis that we get from the hose, right? There's a lot of there. Okay. If I open that, all the refrigerant is going to shoot out. So I must reintroduce the schrader that I first removed in the beginning. And so this is important right here. What you do, you can simply just put that schrader in, but in the right direction. So this schrader here, you see how on one part you get, it looks like a needle. It's kind of narrow. And then this part here is kind of like a square. Let's see if I can get a little closer. It's kind of like a square, and then it has a little needle on top though. That part is the one that this tool grabs onto. It kind of like that, and then I can twist it. There we go, like that, right? So I want to put that like this, the narrow part, right? Not the one with the little square, but this narrow part goes in. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it here on the tool. Okay, I grabbed it. I'm gonna put it inside here. This is important right here. Okay, you must close this part here, this part right here. You must close that because I'm gonna open this right now. So you must close this. That's very important. Okay, so now that it's closed, now I can open it. And yes, it's gonna be fighting me right now because I put refrigerant. It's gonna be a little hard, but it's still doable. What you do, you go ahead and go righty-tighty. And what I do, this is what I do. I keep one thumb here, and then while the thumb's there, I'm pushing down and going to the right. So my hands really have a little bit of oil right now, so it's a little slippery. But you see, now it got tight. Now it's a little bit tight, right? So you see, I'm gonna try to spin it right now. It can't go anymore. That's it. Don't over tighten it. You don't want to over tighten it. So one way to find out if the schrader went inside, I typically close the valve here. I open this here. First, I make sure the schrader is not here. Awesome. I'm gonna open this. No refrigerant should come out. Maybe very little because of the minimus, but let's see. That's it. Nothing came out. I'm gonna go ahead and open this. Awesome. And look at that schrader inside of there. It's inside. So now that we put the schrader back, now we can connect our gauges and turn on the system. So sometimes you're not able to reintroduce all the refrigerant while it's off, and you must now turn on the system to charge on the low side. So of course this only applies to the recovery tank. If you're using a virgin tank, you can only charge. But with the recovery tank, if you are slightly overcharged, you can recover at the same time. And I'll show you that right now, but it goes back to the principle of this. The system must be on, okay? It must be on. So we can agree that on your high side of the system picks up. It's the highest, right? It is the highest. The low side of the system, your low side pressure is the lowest. Your middle is your recovery tank pressure. So if you go from the high side by opening up the valve, you're gonna end up recovering. But let's say you open up the recovery tank, you're gonna end up charging if you go to the low side, which I'll show you right now. But let's go ahead and let's start off by charging. So have in mind, I reconnected everything again. Everything is pretty much the same at first. I connected the low side to my suction, my high side to the liquid line port, and my service hose to my recovery tank, okay? So, but have in mind this though, because I reconnected everything, now I must purge. So let's say I want to recover. And let's say right now I'm gonna zero it out. Right now I'm at 0, right? 0 pounds. You're gonna see that number increase because I'm gonna be recovering. But to do that, I must do this. Open the high side and purge here. You see, purged. I purged the high side. Great. So now I'm gonna close it. I'm gonna open the valve here because I already purged. Okay, I'm gonna zero it out. So how do I know I'm recovering? One key factor is right here. That number is gonna drop and that number is gonna increase because we're adding refrigerant to the tank. So look at that number drop. That means I'm gonna be recovering. And I'm gonna open up the high side, right? Because the highest side, higher pressure goes to lower pressure. So higher pressure is gonna go to my tank pressure. Look at that number drop. You see? It went from 447 to 381. I'm recovering right now as we speak. And this only works if, let's say you're slightly overcharged or maybe overcharged for 2 pounds. And it's not a rule of thumb. It's just a number I kind of just think of. You don't really want to do this when you have to like recover 10 pounds. You have to use the recovery machine. In this case though, I'm just slightly recovering a bit. And let's say how much I ended up recovering. You see, a pound. So typically if you're slightly overcharged a pound, 2 pounds, you can do this. But you got to open up the high side. The low side, if I open up the low side, guess what? Because going back to the principle, if I open the tank pressure to my low side, I'm going to be now charging because the low side is lower pressure. What I like to do though, because this was not in a vacuum state, I like just to purge right here, very little. Because I am going to introduce refrigerant, just very little. Good. Right? Obviously, if it was in a vacuum, I wouldn't have to do that, but I reconnected everything. So now, and it must be in liquid. It can't be on the blue one. It's got to be liquid. Now I'm going to charge. And look at that number. Let's see if you guys can see right there. It's 134. We're at 1 pound that we ended up recovering. 134. If that number goes up, then I am charging. And this is where you have to be careful. You want to throttle it. Maybe 3 seconds. I'm going to crack it. Look at 134. Look at that number climb up. I'm going to crack it open. You see? 169. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. 3 Mississippi. And I'm done. Close it. Okay? I ended up charging about a couple ounces. 13 ounces. Because I know exactly how much it needs, I'm going to, I can be safe in charging the 13 ounces. But when working with the split system and you're trying to get subcooled superheat, charging it through that method, you gotta be careful. But in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and just crack it more. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. All right, close that. And now I'm at 9 pounds. Another little tip that someone taught me, if it's at 144, if I crack it barely for it to be, let's say I crack it, let's see, 144, I crack it, you see it's at 147, I can let it just stay open because it's so little that's going in. So little. You see, and it's gonna be dropping very, very little, 7, but of course it's gonna take a long time. But that's just a little tip that one of the senior techs taught me. It's not gonna mess up the compressor. In fact, it's probably a little bit safer because it's just allowing very little refrigerant to go in. So you can do that, but you gotta go right above wherever the suction pressure is at. So you see, I closed it, it went back down to 147. So now I'm gonna just crack it open. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. And you can actually hear that compressor. It doesn't like it when it's getting that liquid refrigerant by a lot. So that's why you gotta be patient. So, and let me see where we're at now. Okay, let's check. I ended up charging. There we go. It went to 0. So we're done. We're done with charging now. So you guys were able to see, I was able to do passive recovery on the high side because higher pressure goes to the lower pressure. I'm also able to charge, though, from the recovery tank to the high side because higher pressure goes to lower pressure because the system is on, and that's the key. It needs to be on. If it's off, then you charge everything on the high side of the system, not the low side. You charge everything on the high side of the system. So, which is the recovery tank, that's the nice thing. You can do both. But if you had a virgin tank, you would only be able to charge the system. So we were able to work on 3 things today. Doing a recovery, pulling a vacuum, and charging the system. Recovery, do you remember what that was? It's to recover any refrigerant from the system to a tank. And yes, we needed a recovery machine, a recovery cylinder, and the importance of also purging at the end to not allow any air into the recovery cylinder. Because a lot of the times we end up using the same refrigerant here to then recover, to charge another system or charge it on this system. And yes, we only recover because we're gonna brace. There's a leak. We're gonna replace the compressor, the filter dryer. So we recovered, we pulled the vacuum, and the key is 500 microns. 500, and if it doesn't climb up above 1,000, perfect. If it climbs up to 2,000 to 3,000, you might have you might still have moisture. You might have to do a triple evac. If it climbs up to 0 psi, back to atmospheric pressure, you might still have a leak. Maybe the bracing wasn't done correctly. And you're able to see both ways, right? With the field piece gauges, they have a built-in micron gauge. You can do it this way, but all your hoses must be connected just right. The gaskets must be in good condition. If not, you will never be able to pull a vacuum. Or the second option was just simply having a core removal tool, a micron gauge, a vacuum pump, and a vacuum hose. And the bigger the vacuum pump, the bigger the hose, the faster you can pull a vacuum. And then charging a system. Very important. You must charge with it off, and that's the key. With it off, you must charge on the high side, whether it's the liquid line or the discharge port. If you have a liquid line port, throw it on the liquid line. Throw all the refrigerant. It takes 6 pounds, 4 ounces. Throw everything inside in one shot. If you're cracking it open very little, it's going to kind of regulate, and then it's going to fight it. That's why you want to just charge it when it's off on the high side. If there's no liquid line port, do it on the discharge port. It's fine as well. And let's say you're not able to get all of it in with the system on, you can then charge it on the low side, but by being careful and throttling it. Being very careful. You're able to see how we can also do passive recovery too. With the system on, by opening up the high side of the system, you can now recover to the tank if you slightly overcharged. So yeah, there's a lot of little steps here. The little steps are as important as the big steps, but it is something that is very much possible by having the right tools and the right knowledge. Friends, I hope today's video helped you out, and I will catch you in the next one.